Good day. My name is Jabu Madlala. I'm here with my colleague Daniel Roberts, and thank you for participating and attending today to listen to this short presentation on how to raise project financing through this capital guarantee program, sometimes what we refer to as the Capital Completion Guarantee Program, which simple tries to ensure that all project owners, developers or EPCs or construction firms do complete the asset that is being financed to reach the commercial operations date. Because as you know very well, many projects fall apart because they never reach the commercial operations date. So through our program, we ensure that we finance 100% all the infrastructure projects that demonstrate to satisfy all our investment criteria, investment requirements. And I will take you through, as I said, step 1 and step 2. And then Robert will finish the presentation with the details on the step 3. Starts with the application, which takes about 15 days. And then that will take us through due diligence, assuming all the parties are ready to present the necessary information by introducing a project, and which is emailed to us together with the ROA letter and the budgetary information. And if all the documents are not in place, we resolve the issues, the project owner resubmit, and until all the documents are submitted, and then the pre-approval is obtained, which we then send to our underwriting banks, and obviously together with the use of funds that we'll have submitted, not just the use of funds, but also together with the draw schedule. And then that's when the project is formally registered. And then we move on to the next step, and which takes about 30 days. And that's when we do the due diligence. The primary focus really, as you know, our project happens through special purpose vehicle. We establish that together with a bank account. We do a site visit if it's necessary. And then also we look at establishing the loan agreements, and if there is going to be equity purchase in the SPV, not in the company of the project owner, in the SPV, then we sign all those agreements and we put them in place to make sure that typically we will take a minority carried interest in an SPV up to 30%, but as I said, it depends on the strength of the project. And in this SPV, the project owner remains the majority owner or shareholder, and then so the financing happens through this SPV. So if all the parties are ready, the step 1 and step 2 will take a date in 15 days. So I'd like to hand you over to my colleague Daniel Roberts. So Daniel, over to you. Thank you.
So continue through this process. The third step really is executing the agreements. There's an EPC or general contractor contract between the company often and the EPC firm or general contractor that's been selected. There's a loan agreement and the share purchase agreement from the previous step. Execute those contracts, and then we continue where at that point and only at that point, the issuing bank sends the bank guarantee standby letter of credit instrument. That goes by a SWIFT, and then the hard copy original goes by a courier okay, to the receiving bank. And then at that point is official financial closing. We can usually get to financial closing within 30 days. It's often a bit less than that. And then the first monthly draw can occur 30 to 45 days after that. And we sometimes get asked, well, what happens if the first funds don't come from the from the receiving bank, that's from our partner's bank, to the project special purpose vehicle bank account? What happens? Well, usually each monthly draw comes forward. In fact, we couldn't stop it if we wanted to. Monthly draws proceed per the established schedule through completion of construction and then commissioning. But here's the important, subtle, technical fact. In case the initial funds are not received for whatever reason, the bank guarantee issuer can actually recall or unwind or undo the issued bank guarantee standby letter of credit. Prior to the first draw, they can pull it back. One other subtle and important point, sometimes people are worried about the bank guarantee, SBLC, being called during the process of monthly transfers. We would have no reason to do that, but that's still sometimes a concern. The important point is to note that the instrument is only callable up to the extent of funds that have been transferred at that point. So if there was a problem, if, for example, the EPC firm or the general contractor or even the developer just abandoned the project or stopped doing work for some reason, okay, and we were unable to resolve the delay that was being caused by that, and after many, many efforts to, in a friendly manner now, work out whatever the cause of the delay was, having a bank guarantee standby letter of credit's purpose really is to make sure that issues get resolved. Then if the issues proved to be unresolvable and there was probably something akin to fraud or some other issues that could not be resolved, then yes, the instrument could be called, but only up to the extent of funds that had been transferred at that point. Okay, so we proceed through to completion of the asset. Standby letter of credit, bank guarantee, is allowed to expire upon commercial operation date. And then at that point, special purpose vehicle equity is allocated to the proportionate owners. During construction, we hold 100% of the equity in escrow. It's just cleaner that way. But upon completion, then the proportionate equity owners, the proportions decided by the loan agreement and share purchase agreement executed at the beginning of this step. And then we proceed through the remaining steps in this process. The project gets launched, begins debt service with the first quarterly payment. Once the project is commissioned, then the principal repayments would begin. Prior to that, it was interest only during construction. If in fact there's going to be a board seat available, then the governance board monitoring would begin at that stage, that point, and as well the equity partners, once the project begins generating cash from operations, would begin receiving quarterly distributions. Here's a recap of the overall process at a very high level. Okay, the developer, the owners, the company would have one or more projects to finance, and then we would be arranging that funding for those projects. Okay, the developer brings at least 50% standby letter of credit or bank guarantee value, 50% of the total budget. So for example, a $100 million project would be a $50 million SBLC bank guarantee. More than that would be better. That would decrease our aspiration for an equity interest, that one point that gets negotiated. And then a part of the application and qualification, we're going to look for the 4 S's. Surety is the guarantee itself, but also that it's in any stage, pretty much anywhere in the world except for the countries where there are sanctions against those countries, presently just Russia, North Korea, and Venezuela. Those are the only countries we can't work, right? Right, and the size of the project needs to be 25 million or more, and the sector, as long as it doesn't cause environmental or social harm, we're good with it. We would obtain the proposed bank guarantee via RWA letter. Really, the RWA is a statement of the bank's intent, and then we match that up with the verbiage that they will use when the time comes, as you saw a moment ago in the third step. Begins with the RWA in the step 1, but it ends at right before closing with issuing the bank guarantee standby letter of credit. In some cases, it could be a sovereign guarantee, but that also goes through a bank using the SWIFT system. And then, of course, when the RWA comes forward, we'd like to know, well, what bank would be used on their end. Once we receive the RWA, we'll respond with what bank will be used on our end. And the next thing we do is we review the budget, the uses of proceeds, the monthly draw schedule. We provide approval based on that, issuing our services agreement if there isn't already one, expression of interest if that's wanted. And then the offer is accepted, and the final piece of this, the company would review, then sign the loan agreement and share purchase agreement, whatever contract they might enter with the EPC firm, integrator, or general contractor would also occur between the developer and that company. And then the bank would send the bank guarantee SPLC via SWIFT in hard copy, as I mentioned, and we reach closing within 30 days of all that, 30 days from the beginning of all this, followed by the monthly capital draws until COD, at which time the bank guarantee is released or allowed to expire. And that is how that works.